David Bowie's former bandmates have a lot to say about him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We are on the Grunge channel. I'll leave the link in the description so you can check out more videos yourselves. Want to see what they had to say, man. R.I.P. to David Bowie. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
Rock star, artist, legend. David Bowie was one of the most influential people in the music industry, but how did he come across to those who performed alongside him? Both classic rock icons who dominated music in the 1970s, David Bowie and Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones collaborated on a song just once. In 1985, they recorded a one-off cover version of Martha and the Vandellas' 1964 hit Dancing in the Street. The Bowie and Jagger version reached #1 in their native UK and the top 10 in the US. The two were friends for many years, both before and after they released the track.
We used to go out in New York a lot, we used to go out dancing all the time.
You have to check that out.
According to Bowie's first wife, Angela, they were also discreet lovers at one point. After Bowie's death in 2016, Jagger talked up their close friendship to Rolling Stone, saying, "There was always an exchange of information within our friendship, and I suppose there was always an element of competition between us, but it never felt overwhelming." Jagger added that they most often discussed work concerns unique to rock stars, such as hiring band members, songwriting methods, and flashy fashion. Jagger recalled, "He'd always look at my clothes labels. When he would see me, he'd give me a hug, and I could feel him going up behind the collar of my shirt to see what I was wearing. He used to copy me sometimes, but he'd be very honest about it." Jagger clarified he'd also borrow Bowie's looks from time to time, and that he was always happy to share with his old friend. Jazz musician Mike Garson joined the David Bowie universe early into his career, successfully auditioning to play keyboards in Bowie's live band, even though he wasn't familiar with Bowie's music. With 600 shows logged between 1972 and 2006, nobody played alongside Bowie more than Garson did, and his multi-instrumental work is all over Bowie albums like Aladdin Sane, Pinups, Diamond Dogs, Young Americans, Black Tie White Noise, and Earthling.
That was Mike Garson on piano, of course.
Due to his years of involvement, Garson witnessed Bowie's rise to stardom and every era that followed, and the keyboardist knew from the beginning that the songwriter was an icon in the making. Garson told Classic Rock, "He was beautifully sculpted. His face, the makeup, the clothing. You knew you were in the presence of a star. The only other person I'd seen like that was Elvis Presley." Garson went on to say that Bowie was very open to his creative input and that the singer considered Garson more of a collaborator than a hired gun. Speaking with Quartz, he marveled at Bowie's work and leadership styles. He even compared Bowie's creative direction to that of Miles Davis, in that neither tried to nitpick his band's playing. He said, "He knew who to pick to work with, and he knew if he got out of the way and let them do their thing, he'd get the most out of them." After fronting the proto-punk band The Stooges, Iggy Pop launched a solo career with his two 1977 albums, The Idiot and Lust for Life. Bowie had been Pop's friend and mentor since 1971 and was heavily involved in his protégé's second act. He produced both records and contributed to the songwriting of each project, and he helped assemble a backing band for the burgeoning rocker.
Had he not come along with that proposal, I probably wouldn't be talking to you. No.
Really?
On the second LP, Bowie also played piano. Pop was deeply appreciative of his friend's help, recalling to the New York Times, "He was more of a benefactor than a friend in a way most people think of friendship. He went a bit out of his way to bestow some good karma on me." Pop went on to talk about how Bowie showed genuine interest in his family in Michigan, and that he even went to visit his parents' trailer. Upon Bowie's death in 2016, Pop memorialized the musician on X, formerly known as Twitter, writing, "David's friendship was the light of my life. I never met such a brilliant person. He was the best there is." Thomas Dolby's synth-powered 1982 song She Blinded Me with Science was his only major hit in the US. However, he was also an electronic music pioneer with an extensive resume as a session musician, and it was in that capacity that he joined David Bowie's band as a keyboardist for the singer's 1985 Live Aid performance. Speaking with Ultimate Classic Rock, Dolby revealed Bowie wasn't completely aware that the outdoor music festival was staged to raise money to fight famine in Africa, so he initially planned to use it as a chance to promote his newest single. Dolby explained, "Then he got closer and he zeroed in on that and he realized it wasn't about that. He He was going to rise above that and do something transcendent, and so he kept changing the choice of songs right up until the last minute.
After 3 rehearsals, and there's not much you can do.
The main requirement was anything with no more than 3 chords, you know.
That rushed atmosphere nevertheless gave Dolby a strong impression of how Bowie made art. Much like Garson, Dolby commended Bowie for the freedom and inspiration he gave his players, saying, "He'd never grab a guitar from you and show you a chord or plunk out a melody on the keyboard. He would just stand in the middle of the room exuding light, and we all wanted to shine for him. It's a very inspiring experience." Songwriter, arranger, guitarist, and producer Mick Ronson may be responsible for creating the idea of David Bowie more than anyone else besides Bowie himself. Ronson played on Bowie's breakout single, the 1969 sci-fi folk hybrid Space Oddity, and he stuck around through Bowie's early years of stardom and experimentation. In the early 1970s, Ronson arranged songs on Bowie's album Hunky Dory, and he performed as one member of the titular intergalactic backing band for Bowie's concept album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. However, Bowie ultimately fired Ronson in the 1970s. The relationship between the two musicians declined at one point, and Ronson explained when and how it happened in an interview with reporter Gary Mulholland. He recalled, "I remember the Ziggy tour. He was so happy then. He loved it and we were all having the time of our lives, and it got knocked on the head. It was such a f***ing shame. America affected the band so badly." In the wake of the conflict, Ronson went on to explain that he planned to visit Bowie in the States with the intention to, quote, "kick some sense into him." Evidently, their relationship improved at some point over the years, for after a hiatus of more than 15 years, Ronson returned to work on the 1993 LP Black Tie, White Noise. Sadly, the guitarist died shortly thereafter from cancer. David Jones knew Geoff MacCormack for most of his life, as the two met at school when they were 8 years old. Impressively, both went on to become professional rock musicians under the stage names David Bowie and War and Peace, respectively. In the 1970s, MacCormack acted as a backup singer on 5 Bowie LPs, including Aladdin Sane and Station to Station, and he was part of the traveling ensemble in the 1974 tour in support of Diamond Dogs. On that same album, he also co-wrote the track Rock and Roll With Me. In 2023, MacCormack looked back on a lifetime of memories to reflect on the big picture meaning and impact of Bowie. Discussing the legacy Bowie built, MacCormack reflected to Ultimate Classic Rock, "I think he's pretty well cemented himself a place in music history. Because there's something, even if you're not a fan of everything he did, there's something admirable about the way he got through that and reinvented himself so many times and kept you guessing that other artists just don't have." MacCormack also pointed out that Bowie's ability to genre hop will also be a big part of why he'll go down in history. He explained, "You think of a band or an artist, you kind of think of that genre, whereas it's difficult to stick that on him and go, which genre? When he did that? Or when he did that?" So it's that force of a body of work rather than a style. Bassist and occasional trumpet player Trevor Bolder first played on a David Bowie project for 1971's Hunky Dory. He'd become a member of Bowie's Ziggy Stardust era band, playing live and contributing to Aladdin Sane, Pinups, and the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. When Bowie moved on from his alien persona and that band, Bolder continued his musical career playing in the popular British hard rock outfit Uriah Heep. As a first-hand witness to Bowie's rise into the realm of superstardom, Bolder harbored complicated and largely negative feelings about his former boss. Speaking with Dimitri M. Epstein in 2003, Bolder recalled how their relationship changed as Bowie's star grew, saying, "He was a nice, caring bloke, but the bigger he got, the bigger his head got, and the less important you were to him. When he didn't need you, he'd discard you, but while he needed you, he was very friendly towards you." Sadly, Bolder died in 2013, just a few years before his ex-band leader. After many distinct eras as a solo artist with various groups of hired backing musicians, David Bowie set out to form a true rock band in the 1980s. That idea became the 2-album project Tin Machine, and drummer Hunt Sales was among the players Bowie recruited for the project. Long associated with Todd Rundgren, Sales previously backed up Iggy Pop in the late 1970s in the same band Bowie played keyboards with. Sales seemingly didn't feel much, if any, intimidation around Bowie, always viewing him as a bandmate and compatriot. He explained to Billboard in 2018, "Tin Machine was a band. I didn't work for him. I worked with him. I could say, you know what I like about that idea, Dave? He'd say, "What?" And I'd go, "Nothing." And he'd laugh because at least I was shooting from the hip and being honest with him. After over a decade in the limelight, it seems that Bowie came to appreciate some candor from his collaborators in favor of the blind placating that often comes with celebrity. In 1995, David Bowie toured to promote his album Outside, bringing along Trent Reznor's project 9 Inch Nails for the run of shows. Bowie and Reznor often performed together on stage and in the studio, and Reznor produced multiple Bowie remixes, including 5 new takes on I'm Afraid of Americans.
There's kind of one pivotal point where we both seem to have the same sensibility, and we sort of boiled down the choices of songs that we've done really represent the 2 points.
Being asked to play with Bowie was monumental for Reznor, who once saw the musician as an idol and later as a guide and fatherly presence. Discussing the experience with Rolling Stone, Reznor gushed, "To actually meet this man in the flesh and find out, to my delight, that he passed any expectation I had. The fact that he was this graceful, charming, happy, fearless character became a new point of inspiration for me." Reznor went on to describe the experience of performing his song Hurt with Bowie as one of the most incredible experiences of his life. Even more profoundly, Reznor also credits Bowie for helping him beat an addiction to drugs. Reznor recalled that at the time he met Bowie, the rock star had been through a lot and made it out the other end. He explained, "He said some things that weren't scolding, but pieces of wisdom that stuck with me. You know, there is a better way here, and it doesn't have to end in despair or in death." Alongside Hunt Sales, Reeves Gabrels was another piece to Bowie's experimental rock project Tin Machine. Sticking with Bowie through 2 Tin Machine albums and many of his solo projects throughout the 1990s and beyond, Gabrels served as Bowie's lead guitarist longer than anyone else. Their relationship evolved over time, but Gabrels frequently acted as Bowie's confidant when discussing the less than attractive elements of being a celebrity and public-facing artist. As he put it to Premier Guitar, in the early stages of their collaboration, he saw the singer as something of an older brother. Gabrels also added that, while they were preparing to release Tin Machine's work, his frontman was very upfront about the reality of playing in a band with a rock legend. He recalled Bowie telling him, "It's great when we're behind these walls, but as soon as we get out in the world and start dealing with the paparazzi side of press and things like that, it's gonna get weird. It's like, basically, we're all equals in here, but as soon as we get outside, it's gonna be all about me." Gabrels also said that Bowie bluntly lamented that all fame could really get him were luxuries like nice tables at restaurants and free entry to concerts. Apparently, even some of the biggest stars of their age still feel the constraints of the public eye in their day-to-day life. Gail Ann Dorsey is a solo artist and prolific session musician who has played with alternative rock bands like Tears for Fears, Indigo Girls, and Gang of Four. In 1995, her resume grew even more impressive when David Bowie personally called her to offer her a spot in his band. Dorsey accepted the gig, and she remained a member of Bowie's live ensemble until 2002, in addition to playing on the album Earthling. In a piece she wrote for The Guardian memorializing the singer, she reflected, "For someone who had allegedly done so many drugs, the wealth of intellect he possessed and exuded was astonishing. He used to tell me he was thankful I didn't know him when he was on drugs, that I wouldn't have liked him very much." Dorsey went on to highlight Bowie's generosity and kind heart and seemed extremely appreciative for the impact he had on her own musical journey. She recalled that, in addition to getting to play in his band, he would come to support her other artistic pursuits as well, writing, "At times when the stage was mine alone, he would venture out to watch me perform a solo acoustic set at some Manhattan singer-songwriter cave on a weeknight, lurking there in the shadows, cheering me on."
So for the most part, everybody had good things to say. You gotta love that. Cause you know, out of all the people I've reacted to, David Bowie was at like the top of one of the most unique artists, you know. This the music he had, like Let's Dance and Fame, like yeah, some great songs. It's cool to hear all those stories, because you never know if people gonna have a lot of terrible things to say when someone's gone. But man, so they would say like he just basically like had an aura. He had that glowing outline. So when he walked in a room, you really feel his presence. That's great. That's great. I didn't really have too much to say. I didn't want to stop or interrupt the video because, like, a lot of times when they go from person to person, you know, the sections are pretty quick. But hey, rest in peace to this brother again. His music gonna live on forever. All right, peace out.